Shea, I am going to read to you what you wrote in, and then I would love to hear how you feel and any additional context that would be helpful, though I will give you a heads up and everybody watching and listening. This is going to be a little bit of a different kind of session than I've done in the past because I prepared some exercises that I'd like to walk you through. So, not to say whatever you respond to, we can't riff off. Of course, we'll go down any rabbit hole we need to, but I'm really excited to see how these exercises that I prepared works for you. Okay, so this is what you wrote in. You would like to focus on a career planning strategy to land a job in the short term, while also planning out opportunities for a side hustle job and to upskill. You need help with articulating your career story, transferable skills, be more prepared for a job interview. But here's the problem. Okay. So you said, my biggest challenge right now is struggling with executive functioning, including distractions, procrastination due to fear and overwhelm of the amount of job applications to submit, or just not feeling fully qualified for a role, not setting up adequate time blocks and breaks, a lack of confidence and motivation to get started, and not being in a quiet and focused environment like a library to do work with no interruptions. You also wrote that you are experiencing mental health and depression due to struggles in finding and sustaining a part-time essential job to pay my bills. I've experienced wrongful termination and workplace bullying. I am in a financial hardship due to working low-paying jobs and a lack of employment for the last 4 years. I was diagnosed with breast cancer in February 2024 and finished radiation treatment in July 2024. This made it hard to sustain a job, both physically and mentally. I am thankfully a survivor of cancer and recovered, yay, but still in the mental healing process of such a tragic health event. Thank you for being here, for sharing all of that. But do tell me, when hearing your own words read back to you, how does it make you feel? And
Mm.
any additional context you want me to know that would be helpful.
Yeah, I did read through this a little bit before I got on here and prepared for today. But just even you reading it here, I just think it would be a lot for anyone to have to read. I just think that is something that has allowed me to heal in some ways and to try to grow and make moves, make next steps, because sometimes when we're in the thick of it, and that's been, I think, the bigger overarching struggle here is just being stuck, trying to get out of my own way and really trying to heal these wounds from a lot of these specifically personal mental health struggles in my career and outside of my career, and then being able to take good advice and have a support network and create a support network so that I can get some really good tools and resources to move forward. Now particularly when I say move forward, it's the first thing that you said. It's
Mhm.
for me the career plan. I've struggled with lots of different career plans over the last 4 years. And I do want to make mention, just for the record, that it isn't that I haven't been employed for 4 years, but I've been in a job search for 4 years. And that's like a little bit different. I've had contract, full-time, temporary positions and been in and out of like part-time gigs with really like, I hate to say, but a dead end, right? There's no benefits, there's no way to upskill, there's no way to advance, to get a pay raise, to be able to maintain and sustain your life. And so, yeah, 4 years puts us back at the pandemic. And that's really how I think all of this unfolded for me. When you reference the mental health and depression, that was starting then due to workplace bullying and due to termination of my job. And then I had a loss of life from my grandmother, who is near and dear to me. She actually lived with me for the majority of my upbringing. And so I have a very close relationship with her. And to me, she was my hero, my living hero. And now I call her my spirit guide.
Mhm.
I've been trying to heal from that, from those experiences. They've created, unfortunately, a lot of trauma and distress for me. And try to make some kind of sustainability. So again, that's a lot. The career plan is certainly the focus because I know this is what you do and your expertise. But yeah, I'm interested in how those other things, those other personal things, they affect how you get to your goals.
Yes, yes. And it's interesting. You used the words that you said, it's a lot to hear, all of that. And I thought to myself, yeah, it sounds like a lot to live. It's a lot to live, all of that,
It's a
you know?
lot to live. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great way to reframe it. Yes.
Listen, when how I prepared for today, I could sit with you and talk to you about what jobs to target, how to apply, how do you manage the application process while sustaining your energy, minimizing overwhelm, maximizing confidence. But you were just not going to implement those things if your mental health is crap, right? The mental health, that is
Yeah.
the foundation upon which you want to build everything else on. Okay.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. So I think for our focus today, I would love to talk to you about releasing energetic charge So all of the toxicity that you've experienced from other people that you absorbed literally into your body. I'm not saying that your job caused cancer, but I think there's
Oh,
massive
no. I
did,
have
but
talked.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't want to cut you off or anything, but you are literally like speaking my language. I've actually been, since my diagnosis earlier this year, I have been more in touch with healers. Like I've gone to psychic readings and I have been very interested in tapping into those energy fields. And now I've done yoga now for 20 years since being a college student, but I'm tapping into something called somatic yoga, which is really allowing to release emotion. So this is a lot of the things that you're talking about. I'm trying to get there. I'm trying to make it a focus.
Awesome. And I think being open-minded, open-hearted, so important. A great book to check out for you, but also anybody who is going through health things or knows somebody going through health things. So, AKA everybody. It's called Love, Medicine, and Miracles. And I'm just going to read you the subtitle. It's Lessons Learned About Self-Healing from a Surgeon's Experience with Exceptional Patients. So it's a real like doctor kind of rational brain, but he saw these miracles and how people received the information of cancer and then what they did next really did change how long they lived and what their experience was. So, anyway, glad we're on the same page there. So, I want to talk about releasing energetic charge from all this toxicity, transforming what I call mind trash. Okay. So, everything that
Oh,
you tell
okay.
yourself, right? All of the spiraling negative thoughts that inform belief systems that then dictate the actions you take. Let's transform the mind trash into some gold. We can find good shit there. And then a couple of things around connecting to your core essence. So, really being able to tap back into who you deeply are underneath all of the toxicity that you've received. And I think if you do this kind of foundational work, then when you learn the strategies for what jobs to apply to, how to articulate your story, filtering opportunities, etc., it's going to be more easeful. Like it's still going to be work,
Mm,
but it's not going to feel so like round peg in a square hole. Everything's hard,
mm,
but there's different kinds of hards. And I think for any of us who have done hard work where we felt fulfilled, then it's energizing hard work. I think it's possible to turn a job search into fulfilling hard work because it becomes an
yeah.
of expanding your network, connecting with people, connecting with yourself, right? Imagining opportunities and taking steps towards creating them for yourself, not just waiting. It can really be an empowering life stage. But for most people, not just you, but for most people, looking for a job is like, oh, I hate that I have to do this. If you're going to take this, I hate that I have to do this energy into the job search, it is going to be a lot harder. And you're also going to be
Hmm.
giving off that energy. So it's you got to fulfill yourself in order to find the opportunities. Or let me say that again. It's like you have to deeply feel that you are worthy without anybody else up and then
Yes.
those people appear. So, oh, all right. Ironically, it's like when I give it to myself, then others can give to me. So, all that being
Yeah.
said, there are certain parameters that you and all of us are working within, right? So, the amount of hours and energy that you have in a given day. So, I do want to talk to you about what that actually looks like so that we're not speaking in abstracts here. A typical day for you, are you going into the office? Are you working? Like, how many hours would you say you are dedicating to paying your bills?
Okay. Yeah. So to paying my bills, I'm just grateful to be able to say on this podcast that I did land a part-time job. It's going to be about 15 hours a week. And I'm lucky because I have a connection with the business owner. They don't really know me from a previous time, but I have a connection through mutual connections, which is life, right? We're in a small town too. And they're able to pay me like a little bit more than the minimum wage. So I'm going to be getting like between 18 and $20 an hour. This should really be a pretty sustainable thing for my bills. To be honest with you, it sounds weird, but I'm able to make the financial things that I have to take care of, they're pretty low right now because I've been able to maintain low overhead. However, it's also because of the breast cancer diagnosis, I was able to get a lot of grant funding to push out and pay for some of these really larger expenses and even my student loans, unfortunately, that I still have. And feel like I'm a little bit just waiting for those finances to kind of surface again. And they probably won't surface until the early part of next year, January, February, March. So right now it's good. And right now it's sustainable. And that's allowing me to, I don't want to take on too many more like part-time jobs because I don't want to not have time for the job search, which I'm sure
Hmm.
is the next
Okay.
step.
So let's say, and I'll just go off of me for a second. I only want to work 30 hours a week. So I actually learned that
Mm,
from a friend of mine who runs a business. She makes $400,000 working 30 hours a week. Okay. That's a whole other conversation to have, but I've used
right.
her example as proof that it is possible, and I am building
Yes.
a life. So not just a business, but a life around that. Okay. So I'm going to say for you as well, you only want to work 30 hours a week. Right now, you're working 15 hours for this other job. So let's just say you have 15 hours a week to work on creating this next path for yourself. Okay.
Hmm.
So let's just say, what is that? 3 hours a day, 5 days a week,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So three
Yeah,
hours
that's fine. Yeah.
this week. And you're going to look at your energy level. I hope you're doing well health wise. And you're going to look at your energy level throughout the day, and you're going to pick out when are your best windows of focus for you. So maybe that's not three
Okay.
hours in one sitting. It's going to be 90 minutes after your coffee, and then you're going to take a nap or whatever. Okay. And then maybe you get
Right.
a second wind after dinner or whatever. Like, this is
Right.
totally up to you to design and to experiment with. The reason I'm saying all this before we get into the exercises is I want you to proactively look at your calendar and every week pick out those 3 hours a day or whatever it's going to be for you, and guard
Hmm.
that time with your life, because that time is your life.
Hmm.
This is
Yeah.
it. As anyone who has ever faced death, whether you personally in your body or in my son's body, we have fucking looked at death and we said, "Not today, Satan." Okay.
Yeah.
That means though, this is pressure. This is pressure, and it can become a burden, but it also could become really liberating.
Hmm.
Life is lived in the moment, okay? And in the moment, but you got 3 hours a day of moments. So knowing that you could turn 3 hours into incredibly
Hmm.
productive time for you,
Right. Hmm.
it doesn't
Hmm.
have to, again, be 3 hours in a one chunk. The goal in this is you have to protect it. And the first thing we're going to work on today, or really the whole thing we're going to work on today, is protecting your time from yourself. Because right now, your mind,
Mm.
that mind trash, I think is getting in the way.
Sure. I think you're hitting something.
Yeah, yeah, like it's getting in the way. So there's obvious outside distractions in our lives. My children, I've got 8-month-old twins, like I can only work during their wake windows, or excuse me, the opposite. During their nap,
Sure.
I have to be with them in wake windows. There's only so much I can work around. So you
Mhm.
have the same thing. What about our minds though? When we sit down to do the work, thought pops into our mind. It distracts us. We open up our phone.
Mhm.
Now we're 20 minutes on our phone. Now we can't blame
Mhm.
anyone but ourselves, which is the worst kind of blame, because how the heck do you get
Yeah.
out? So that's what I want to focus on today, is basically protecting yourself from the mind trash. And I think a lot of the mind trash is coming from the crappy experiences that you've had in your life. You're still directing negative energy towards it consciously and subconsciously. It's using up your battery and
Mhm.
clogging your mind.
Mhm.
It's getting in the way of those precious 3 hours that we want to protect. And by the way, none of this work that we're talking about today is going to actually work unless you're getting sufficient sleep, hydrating properly, stabilizing your blood sugar, and then being on medication if that's appropriate for you. So that's a disclaimer to anyone watching and listening, because you may do these exercises and go, I still am like totally run out of battery. And then I say to you, are you drinking any water? And you're like, no. What are we eating? What are we like? This is just fill in the tank with, we're going to use a car analogy here. So it's almost like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We got to fulfill
For
our basic
sure.
needs. And
Yes.
I actually
Yep.
really see that with my kids a lot. I'm like, oh, they're cranky. They need to be fed and they have to get sleep. That's it.
Hmm.
Like,
Just essential needs.
yeah,
Yeah.
essentially it's, and then
Yep.
they need structure. They need to know what's coming next. Oh my
True.
gosh. So this
Hmm.
is the structure with the 3 hour window. So this is
You're
laying the
speaking my language. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so before we get into the first exercise that I want to do with you, which is about releasing the charge, okay, so the negative energy from very valid, shitty experiences that we do not want to be carrying in our body anymore. Any questions or thoughts you want to share with me at this point?
Oh, just like how I've been reassured so far. There's a lot of specific things you're talking about with getting started with this typical day activity. And this has been something I've been trying to, you know, revisit and get not perfected, but just understand what's the best method for me. I'm definitely on to learning and seeing like how it could be done. I'm very hyper aware. I will say I'm someone who's very hyper aware. I consider myself a highly sensitive person, very intuitive. But that is why I was telling you earlier that I've been going to a lot of healers and psychic mentors and tapping into what it is that I'm not listening to. Because there's
Mm,
clearly some disconnect. And that's what you're maybe going to help me bring up is when there's not clarity, when there's not mental, emotional, depression, anxiety, those types of things, either because I'm burnt out or because I'm not fulfilled, not satisfied with where I'm at.
yeah.
That's really been the key themes. And
Mm,
I'm known to understand, I've been very much a student of like social behavior in people. Like I not only watch a lot of self-help books, but I'm just very interested in helping my clients and students in that way too.
mhm.
So having said that, I'm aware of, oh, depression makes you think about the past and anxiety makes you think about the future.
Mhm.
And then you're never spending any time thinking about what you have to get done right now. And these distractions come up. And like you said, it's also not just distractions. It's, well, what are these habits that are really in place that you've never looked at? And they're like, I don't know if I can swear, but they're really effing up your essential needs. Like you
Yeah.
said, they're really impacting and it's becoming, I talk to I do see a therapist. I do kind of really resonate with what you're saying about those essential needs, talking to someone again supports. And I tell her like, this is really, I feel like the things I've gone through has become compound and
Yeah.
now I have to undo it. So
Yes.
those
Yeah.
are just some things I wanted to share. Hopefully that helps.
Awesome. Love context. Really important. And we'll see if this works. Okay. And by the way, for anybody
Okay.
watching, listening, none of these things, they work like, oh, you do it once and you're fine. What you're doing is looking
Mm,
for where does something pique a little spark for you inside. So there'll be a question I ask, I think, that when you hear it, ooh, like a little light goes on somewhere. This means it's working. Okay. So that's what we're looking for here. All right. So let's take a
okay.
deep breath. Maybe put our feet on the floor if they're not already there, wiggle our toes, sort of get grounded a little bit. And I would love for you to close your eyes and just think of a memory that carries a lot of emotional charge for you. So, probably something that you look at as a negative experience in your life. Maybe it was wrongfully terminated, workplace bullying, the diagnosis of cancer, your grandmother passing away. Okay. Now, let me know, by the way, I promise to put all of the prompts into the chat, but I'm realizing I asked you to shut your eyes. So maybe as I'm doing this, if you want me to either repeat it or put it in the chat, then you just tell me. Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, and I'll cut this part out, obviously. Okay. Now, tell me if you have this experience in your mind's eye. And I would go with whatever one popped into your head first, probably. Intuition is
Okay.
interesting. But then if you're contemplating it and then something else feels more pressing on you, go with whatever feels most vivid.
Okay. Okay. I think I have it.
All right, great. Now, you don't have to do this with me, but I would love for you to do this with yourself, both verbally out loud, but also writing it down. I really want you to describe it like it's a scene in a movie. Okay. So visualizing, articulating all of the details that you possibly can. Everything from what the room looked like, how you felt, who was there, what was said. Okay. So just give it a
Okay.
beat and then tell me if you feel like you have a good picture in your mind of that scene.
I think I do.
Okay. Now think about yourself for a minute in that scene. Think about and feel, if you can remember, what thoughts were going through your head. And you don't have to say it out loud right now, but what thoughts were going in your head? What feelings were happening in your body?
Hmm.
Also, was there an action that you took? I'm sure there's lots of things that are jumbled up together, but try to remember the beginning reactions that you had to this experience. And tell me if you have a sense of what that was.
I'm just writing a few things down. So it's thoughts in your head, feelings in your body, and then your actions.
Yeah, and then any actions you took. And this part's not actually that important. What's most important is this
Mm,
question that I'm going to ask you, which is, what was I protecting myself from?
mm.
And I have more questions to ask you as part of this exercise, but if you want to talk this part out with me, this
Yeah, that would be good. Just because a lot of it's in my head. I am writing some things
Mhm.
down.
Yep. And by the
Um,
way, after this, I'll send you all these exercises.
oh, awesome. Can you repeat the last question?
Sure. Yeah. So after you reflect on, you have this terrible experience, you have this initial reaction, right? There's like a thought that pops in your head, there's a feeling in your body, there's an action you take, like what you effectively, how you responded in all ways. But what
Mm,
we want to then filter that through is this question of, what was I protecting myself from? So that thought that I had at the time, the feeling I had, the action I took, everything that we do is in self-preservation. It's in survival. This is human
okay.
beings evolved. This is how we are here from cave people.
Sure. Yeah,
So if we
I
can
believe
look
that.
at our thoughts, feelings, actions, all in service of self. So what were you protecting yourself from?
I think with what I don't know if I should give context to what I chose
All
as
the
the emotional
things. Yeah,
charge.
you can,
Okay.
give
So
us.
yeah. Yeah. So like just to get, because you want to have the context. So I chose the wrongful termination. And I think the one that popped up is just because I feel like it's still something where it is a painful wound. I'm not necessarily sure if it's completely healed. And the reason why is because, in my opinion, it seems to be coming up in different places and with different phases, right? Different work environments and things like that, and basically just different jobs, unfortunately. So either I'm not going to speculate or get into the analysis of that, but I do just intuitively think there is a pattern and I have to figure out what that is. So when you talked about thoughts in my head, the panic set in. I think if I'm putting myself back into that situation, yeah, the panic set in and I was feeling also very uncertain. And I was feeling like, not that I wouldn't say not like that I wasn't chosen, but like that I wasn't like regarded. Like I felt I wasn't, not like I'm losing the words or not really able to recognize. Sure, exactly. And that's been something that's shown up in a lot of different relationships,
Ah,
not just words, not just in the workplace is what I was trying to say, also in other
hmm
settings, family
hmm
and romantic partners.
yeah.
So that was initial. And then that you said feelings in your body. I felt flush in my face. I tend to get that when I'm like embarrassed or I'm just feeling hurt. And I think I was feeling like fluttering in my heart because I'm sure the anxiety was in my chest. I'm sure that anxiety was settling in. That's usually a very like anxiety feeling for me. And then actions I took right away to interact with this person is I basically just try to help this coworker like see, in my opinion, see my worth, right? I was almost trying to just maybe go into survival mode and be a little persuasive, right? Or a little like when you're in business, when you're in entrepreneurship and someone doesn't like your idea, right? You're like, hey, maybe I can swivel or pivot this way and find a different way to get this person to understand where I'm coming from or that it's a misunderstanding. So that's how I felt. And that's the first action I took was to try and uncover if this person thought that this was a misunderstanding or how invested they were, right, in what they were feeling or thinking.
Now, and I have some stuff that I want to go into about the being recognized, because I think this is going to indicate some great homework for you to do moving forward. So I'm really happy you shared that and I wrote it down. I'm going to cycle back to it. But I want you to
Okay.
just continue on with this exercise. And now you're no longer you, and you are the person who you were interacting with. Trying to,
Oh, okay.
yeah, trying to imagine their thoughts, feelings, actions for just a quick second. What were they trying to protect themselves from? This is so
Yeah.
freaking key. I want to express this like for
Mm,
interpersonal relationships, being able to dialogue with anybody in your life, whether it's a romantic partner, a friend, a family member, your work people, boss, clients, whoever, really being able to remind yourself, however they are operating, it is coming from self protection. It doesn't give them a pass to express themselves in a toxic way or do things that hurt you. So I want to be very clear. This is not that. However, in being able to release the negative charge from an experience like this and then hopefully transform the negativity into something actually quite empowering for you, we need to get into a space in which you have compassion for everybody and everything. So we start with ourselves because it can be a little bit, sometimes, depending on who you are, a little bit easier to understand how you were trying to protect yourself. But what about for them in their actions? And we can never know for sure, of course.
Of
But
course.
do you
Yeah.
have a
I mean, of
sense
course.
of how and why they might have been acting the way they did and how that was in their self-protection?
hmm I wanted to answer the question that you asked first about me and then go into the other person because I think it flow a little bit. So when you said, yeah, so what were you trying to protect? And I think what in a job setting with this type of treat, I felt mistreated, right? This is what we identified as going on. I felt like my integrity was at stake or was
Mhm.
being questioned or compromised. I felt my work ethic wasn't being seen or valued, and generally just my worth. I was able, at least at that time, I've done a lot of personal development work in the last 4 years, but I do think that even in that, because we're all working, involving to get better, and that's at least one of my values in life. I knew that I didn't know as many things as I could have at that time, but I did know that I was being mistreated. So to me, that was a question. It was being that my worth that was being questioned.
Mhm.
Now, to the person that I interacted with, maybe introspectively thinking about what they were thinking, if I can go into context a little based on, I did know this person actually and was working with them for about a year prior to this position. And I felt like a lot of their goals in their job were shifting.
Mhm.
And I could see that their identity was being questioned. I think it was a matter of their image,
Mhm.
not just to me, but to the other like stakeholders involved, our direct supervisors, other folks that they managed, and then like just questioning like their professionalism
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
to try to maintain a sense of professionalism like throughout the interaction.
Mhm.
Because I didn't feel like this person was breaking in what you're asking right now of this activity to see across the aisle and really have compassion and understanding for someone.
Yeah.
And I didn't see that. I did
Mhm.
not see any empathy. I saw a lot of professionalism.
What about for yourself towards them now? Can you imagine? We don't, by
Mm.
the way, do you have a hard stop? Because we're going to definitely go over it today. Is that okay with you?
Oh, that's no problem. Not a
Okay.
problem. Yeah, I'm here for whenever.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So if we were really doing this exercise together, like we would get you to a place where you like felt a compassion towards them. But for our
hmm
purposes right now, can you imagine if you do these kinds of exercises, you could not just intellectually see why they made those choices, but you could feel empathy or as best as you can, compassion for them. Again, the key to self-compassion is also having compassion for others. We see ourselves
Yes.
through other people. So it is super important to heal these kind of interpersonal relationships and experiences we've had that involve others in order to get to a place where we're more deeply connected to ourselves. So can you imagine doing that in this work?
I
Okay, cool.
can, yeah. And specifically, I think not even whether or not I knew this person or not. Like I said, I've been on a personal development journey. So I have utilized my practice in yoga
Mhm.
to do something called meta meditation. And that is entirely rooted in kindness, compassion, and love for others.
Yeah,
And so a really like quick practice is just to say, may they be safe, may
yeah,
they
yeah,
be happy, may they be peaceful. So whatever that is, like to be able to practice that for someone, even if it's just after you had an interaction with
yeah.
them or if it's many years later. So I do try to work on that. And it does involve even this person that had
Yeah.
this interaction.
I do find because I know those exercises too. And when we say those things, sometimes it can be a little bit of a band-aid. So it
Yeah.
provides a temporary relief, but it doesn't sink in. Like we are not fixing the wound. And I do find that a helpful way to get to the wound, which so a deeper level, is to
Mhm.
literally embody this other person. So like we're an actor reading a script. An amazing actor is never faking it. An amazing actor is actually
Mhm.
feeling it. So in this, what are your thoughts, feelings, and actions for yourself when we replay that scene and you now are this person? What are their thoughts, feelings, and actions? Literally putting yourself in their shoes as best as you can. You've already detailed out the scene, right? When we began, you
Mm-hmm.
visualized everything, the room, how it smelled, what you were wearing, et cetera, et cetera. And you were you. But now we're going to play another character. We're going to be this person and going through the experience again, replaying the scene, but as this person, what am I protecting myself from? Okay. So that when
Okay.
you get to the place of let that person be safe and happy and all those sort of compassionate mantras, it will sink in
Mm.
at a much more deeper cellular level.
Okay.
I think if
Mm-hmm.
you've gone through this sort of scene, and by the way, everything that I'm sharing, all these exercises, they're things I've come up with, but as cobbled together from a variety of modalities. So this one in particular, it comes a little bit from EMDR. And so this is
Okay.
a
Yeah.
trauma therapy where you recite a scene that you have experienced in your life. You then do eye movements back and forth, and then you recite the scene again. You're still you, though. You're not another person, but you will find that when you do this work, you start to notice other things in the scene. Like other details start popping up, and you realize that your experience can be so much bigger than what you remember. So I give that as some background. So I added in the part of you playing this other character. Okay. So anyway, just that was a little bit of coaching behind the scenes. Okay.
Yeah. I
Um,
appreciate it.
good.
I'm very aware of trauma therapy. I've actually been involved with it myself recently. So
Yeah, so
that's,
that was EMDR inspired. Now, the next step here, though, is brainstorming all the possible benefits that this experience has either brought you or could
mm,
possibly bring you moving forward. And so I would define a benefit, at least in my life, and I know you agree with me here, it's growth, right? So learning, let's
yeah.
start there. So, what
Yeah.
did we learn from this experience? For anyone struggling with that, it might be what did we learn about ourselves? What did we learn about other people? And your first response might be, I learned that office politics sucks or something. That'll be the first answer. But
Mm.
let's dig a little bit deeper if we're looking for growth, because learning that office politics sucks, does that help inform our growth? Maybe if it's helping
It's
to,
an awareness.
that's
Yes. You're
right.
starting somewhere, right? Because you
Yeah,
have to
right.
be aware in order to grow, in order to make an action.
Exactly. So you may say, okay, now I know the red flags of office politics. And so it's informing questions that I'm going to be asking of my future potential jobs. And so you'll have to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole there, I think. Again, for anyone who's feeling like it
Hmm.
just sucked and there was nothing good, I guarantee you there is always benefit to any experience that we go through. Right off the bat, when you hear all of that, can you think of a few for me?
Yeah, I'm honestly on board with when you said seeing red flags. That was something I did not even almost really acknowledge that could happen and that you would need to be mindful and aware of in a work setting. I really didn't have the background because when I had said I've been working with a therapist and I've been working with my personal development, that's after this incident happened. That's after the wrongful termination and the toxic workplace bullying. Although I did unfortunately have experiences with manipulation and even verbal abuse in relationships, I've also had folks the other way around that were not supportive, right? They didn't offer any emotional support and they're
Mhm.
not available.
Yeah.
So I just didn't yet connect the dots with the fact that, wow, like these people obviously exist and they can show up in the workplace. And I've been now, in addition to your podcast and lots of other podcasts for self-help, I've been looking into not only helping with my executive functioning, but also with PTSD around
Mhm.
manipulative people and trying to find self-help podcasts that are going to help me see the red flags. Because it's not just something like, oh, just see the red flags. It's not that easy for folks. And especially because I said I identified myself as a highly sensitive person and an empathetic person. So I have a lot of times the lens of seeing the good in people first, right? And not wanting to or allowing myself to protect my energy and
Mhm.
think about how they're being destructive to my life. Another one would be identifying and setting better emotional boundaries.
Mhm.
Specifically, there's lots of boundaries. I'm sure you're aware, especially if you have that EMDR background. There's lots of different boundaries, physical, emotional. So I didn't really know about them like three
Mhm.
years ago,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
that's like a big deal, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
And by the way,
It's
so
the
in just
way you, oh,
phrase,
sorry.
so for example, like brainstorming all the possible benefits it brought or could bring you, one of your answers was, okay, learning that I need to set better emotional boundaries. Amazing. To
Hmm.
turn that into an action, and we're going to, by the way, I have some more exercises around this, but I just want to point out something. Whatever you say, then ask yourself, why does that matter? So why does it matter to set better emotional boundaries? It's obvious, but if you
Mhm.
articulate a response to that, usually that will then give you an action step you can take. It just helps
Yeah.
things really concrete. So this is especially good for people who are really into personal development and who do a lot, read a lot. It's super important for us to get to the core and then get to an action so that you're not stuck in this. I consume a lot, but then when I sit down and try to take an action, I feel stuck, which is a terrible place to be. It's a terrible place to be for anyone, but even worse when you've consumed all of the quote good advice and then you're not implementing it. So I think a good exercise for you and anybody listening and watching who this is resonating with, whenever you hear something that seems to be resonating with you, you go, okay, why does that actually matter to me? And then however you respond to yourself, see if you could ask it one more time. Okay, but why does that matter to me? And you'll probably get to a more concrete, action oriented response. We're going to do an exercise in just a bit
Okay.
that really focuses on that, but I wanted to flag it for you when you're saying these things that are really awesome, but actually really hard to do. Okay, like setting better emotional boundaries.
Yeah.
Okay,
Do you want me to answer that question? Like, why does it matter?
sure, if you want. Yeah.
So I think it's a lot to do with why I was connected when you started this activity about energy. And I've learned so much more about my own energy. So I would say it's really about protecting and sustaining my emotional energy specifically, and how I've known that does cause distress and burnout. So I want to avoid burnout. And that's because I want to be able to focus on my worth and how I contribute to my purpose. I don't want to lose track of my purpose. And that can be very abstract, but it also can be very specific.
And so then the next step here is okay, so protecting my emotional energy is a priority for you, which is great, as it should be for everybody, but you
Hmm.
in particular know that this is
Hmm.
very important to you. So, what are you doing proactively to ensure that you are living that value?
Yeah, so it's a lot of what you even really said with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the essential needs, making sure I have a really structured, everyday, typical routine, daily routine. As you even said, your children need. We all as adults need it, especially someone like me who has gone through the trauma and the PTSD and the experiences I have. It's really important that I focus on that and make that a priority. And that really might mean to me, I'm more of a person who wants to do more and wants to serve and again be compassionate to others. So I need to more times than not practice those boundaries and say no and take more off my plate. So
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
I'm finding is more of the pattern. It's not doing more and being
Mhm.
more productive. It's doing less and being more like having more quality focused time
Mm.
to serve my purpose.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Love it. That's amazing. So, this is the perfect next question, and we're almost done with this exercise. So, it's going
Hmm.
to be expanding the experience. So, saying this was and you give me all of the quote negative adjectives you can, right? This was a shitty, devastating, painful experience, right?
Hmm.
And it was, and then don't just throw out some words, like really sit with what feels like an appropriate description of what it was for you. Could be enlightening, it
Hmm.
could be empowering, it could be whatever, but something that it's you who's come up with this word, not me. So if you want to just take
Okay.
a minute and think of how you would describe this experience, what comes to mind, and then challenge yourself with that. And it was what else? This, by
Hmm.
the way, is very helpful to do in honestly every day. When you look back at your day, you're probably going to have something pop in your head like, oh, that was a tiring day. That was a shitty day. Or, oh, I didn't finish my work. Or because we're looking for problems to solve as human beings, right? If we're going off of my
Yeah.
thesis of self protection, we always want to be better. And a way that we figure out how to be better is by rectifying what didn't work. That's
Hmm.
depressing as hell. If all we're
It
focusing
can
on
be,
is what
yes.
didn't work, oh my God, I'm so tired. That's why it's important at the end of the day or at the end of an experience, you go, it was tiring, it was blah, 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 and it was. And really force yourself to keep finding other ways to describe the reality of life, which is it's nuanced. There's a richness, there's layers to this. It's complicated.
Okay.
We're complicated. And so then you say, okay, this is a painful memory and part of my journey. I don't wish it happened any other way. That's a mantra where you just keep saying it to yourself, but then you replay the memory.
Right.
You go back to the beginning of this whole exercise, you recite out what happened like it's a movie, and see if you are now feeling in your body different, if there's a lightness anywhere than before. So we're going to move on to a couple more exercises of transforming mind trash. So understanding why we have these thoughts and then how to untangle them, strategies for in the moment. But I do want to ask you, actually, do want to ask you two more questions here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Finding connection to yourself and to others. So through these experiences that we have, okay, is there a
Mm-hmm.
way that you can take it and help somebody else? So
Oh,
some,
for sure.
yeah, and so an example,
Yeah.
one thing you could ask yourself is, what have I learned here that might be valuable to someone else? How can this
Okay.
experience make me closer to people? And then what do I need to do within myself in order to be closer, to allow myself to be closer? Which again, it's ironic, but as we get close to others, we also get close to ourselves. But it has to be done in a very specific way. Like, I'll give you an example from something you told me, which is you have seen patterns in the choices that you are
Mm-hmm.
making in your jobs, in your relationships. And the
Mm-hmm.
pattern is it seems like these people are not recognizing you. It seems like these people
Mm-hmm.
are emotionally abusive or manipulative. Guess
Mm-hmm.
what? You are too, to yourself.
Mm.
To
Sure.
yourself.
Right.
I
Yep.
would ask you, how do you manipulate yourself? You're doing it to yourself.
Right.
If you don't know who you are, you're throwing sand in your face. Okay, so you manipulate yourself. You're not recognizing yourself. You're probably verbally abusive to yourself, right? These people are just proxies for yourself. And that's why it's really freaking hard to get out of this cycle. You keep
Right.
searching
It's a
for
cycle.
you.
Right.
Yes. And I think one way to break it is to say, from the shit that I've experienced, let me find the gold, okay, which usually comes in the form of lessons. How do I use those lessons to get closer to other people? Now I'm forming a healthier bond to somebody else that will allow me to form a healthier bond to myself. Let me know how all of that either made sense, didn't make sense, and if it resonated.
Can you say that last part? How did part?
Yeah. Can I say it again? I don't know. When you find the gold in the shit, right? So these terrible experiences you've had, and we found the lessons. Okay. All right. There's some value here. There's always value. How can I use that valuable lesson as a means to get closer to another person? Because when I form that healthy bond
Okay.
with a person, I am actually forming a healthier bond to myself. And that breaks the
And
cycle.
would you? Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, I'm just going to read it back. So it says, how can our, in some way, how it helps me to understand, how can I use this valuable lesson to get closer to, is it the relationship I want, or to get closer to, I'm going to just insert the better energetic people I want supporting me, right?
I love that you're asking these questions because this is really good. No, I want to think actually really small for a second.
Okay.
So this doesn't need, it could end up becoming like your purpose and how you monetize and a whole life
Mhm.
plan, which in my world,
True.
it has, and I can give examples, but that's way too much pressure, way too much pressure.
I get
So
you.
it's, okay, this lesson I experienced, this thing that I, learned, whatever it is, can I give it as a gift to another person in some way? What would that look like? And then start brainstorming very small ways in which you can do that. For example, in my life, so my son has had multiple open heart surgeries and has gone through horrific health stuff and horrible experience. We're suffering, we're suffering, we're suffering. And in that suffering, one of the things that I learned was to stop thinking so much and feel more.
Mm,
Okay. 'Cause I had
right, right.
this woman said to me, she quoted the Bible, and I'm like totally not religious, but now I'm extremely spiritual because I've seen spirituality literally work.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Right, right
my
in front of you.
right in front of my eyes.
I believe you.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, "It's not for you to know. It's not for you to know." Okay, this is the sages said this, and I'm like, I hated that. It is for me to know. I'm
Yeah, it's
always looking for the
uncertainty.
lesson. I'm looking for the
Right.
lesson. I'm like, oh no, it is for me to know. It is for me to know. And then my own inner wisdom popped into my, I guess, mind because I did say it to myself. And it was, it is not for me to know, but it is for me to feel. Ooh, it is for me to feel. Okay. So I let myself feel sad and rage and indignity and all these things without a voice in my head because I had it at the time going, this is so unfair. My poor son is suffering. Like I was reciting a whole narrative to myself.
Mm,
And then I let myself
Right.
feel without the narrative. So I had to take some work to go, okay, when I'm hearing a thought in my head, I have to really breathe it out and then locate where does this feeling of grief in my body to really get into that somatic stuff. So I'm so glad you're on
Sure.
the page. And
Yes.
and this was an
Mm-hmm.
experience I had. So my son was not eating. He was on a hunger strike, very upset. No one could figure out what was wrong, even though the surgery had gone perfectly. And we put in a feeding tube, but I have this moment of, okay, I'm gonna just try for 24 hours to feel all my feelings and really stop the narrative that's like playing like a bad laugh track in the back. And when I walked into
Yeah.
this room, letting myself just feel all the feelings, I felt tremendous love from all the people in the room. I looked
Mm-hmm.
around and all of these caretakers, it was like beams of light, this love, everybody in this room trying to figure out what was wrong with him. They were doing it through love, and that he was a boy. And this is what popped into my head. So, of course, the mind will always have a narrative, and you got to choose what you want to listen to or not. And if it's something that's helping you, you use it. If it's not helping you, you discard it. And what popped into my head was, oh, they're here to witness not a boy who's dying, but a boy who's living. We are honoring his healing. So, even though he's crying, and this is horrible and hard, healing is hard. And this is why I believe this shit works. A few hours later, he ate, and we were out of the hospital in 2 days.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that was the universe saying to me, I'm giving you a lesson. You got to learn it. And if you don't learn it, I'm going to keep hammering you. For you
Right.
and anyone watching, listening, if you've got some patterns in your life, not just patterns, really anything that's hard, the universe is asking you, are you paying attention? Knock, knock. Are you paying attention? Are you paying attention? No. Will you know what the lessons are? There are a million of them, and they're going to keep unfolding. That's why hindsight, whatever, 2020, because you keep evolving and getting closer to understanding yourself and the world. So then, therefore, you look back and you go, ah, okay, I see it now. That's why it's really important to do these exercises with the lens for embracing the complexity of the experience. It's not, I wish it didn't happen or I wish that it did. No, it's, listen, I hate that it happened and I'm glad that it did. I hate that my son suffered and I'm grateful for the lessons it taught me. Same thing for you. I hate that I was fired. I hate that I was bullied. I hate this toxicity. And it can, if you will do the work, which I think you will, it can open up, like I said, that richness of life. You're not existing in a hermetically sealed bubble. Thank God. I actually get worried for people who come to me and they say, nothing bad has ever happened. I've never been fired. I've never
Yes.
faced a hardship.
Oh.
That's hermetic. That's, oh shit, you're really going to crash. And I actually do speak from personal experience here because I had a pretty, I don't want
Yeah.
to say, I had a pretty privileged life. I also was in denial about a lot of hardships, but pretty privileged life. And then I got my first round of edits for my book and they were negative and it destroyed me. And it only destroyed me because
Right.
I had never gotten negative feedback from a boss, except I did get fired, actually,
Mm-hmm.
brutally. But I never had a boss tell me my work wasn't good. This was the first time
Mm-hmm.
somebody said, this is not what we want. And I crashed.
Mm.
So, in a way, you are prime to be fully healed, not fully healed, well, never fully healed, but like you are prime to really
Right.
accelerate because you have been through so many hardships. But it only works if you're willing to stare those hardships in the face and completely
Right.
rewrite your story. Because that's what all this
Yeah.
is. The mind trash, it's the story we tell ourselves. The truth is what's happening in our body. That is always the truth. And the core essence, right, underneath all of the stories we tell ourselves, there is an inner wisdom, but it is very soft. It is not going to speak loud,
Yes.
not going to speak loudly. And so that's the
I
universe
agree.
job. The universe shouts at you to pay attention to the quietness inside. And so if the universe is telling you, we healed you from cancer so you can live your life, what the fuck are you afraid of? If the universe is using hardships to teach you a lesson, what are you supposed to learn from this? I would love for you to take time after this and really get gritty with it and just keep going yourself. And what? And why does this matter? And with all of that, you are opening yourself up to be able to carry this all without it feeling like such a burden. Because right now you're very small And so these experiences loom large and they're crushing you. They're in your way. They're
Hmm.
blocking you from being able to sit down and do your work, live your life. The only way to make these experiences less of a burden is by expanding your capacity to carry them. Yeah. So it's not a
Really good nuggets.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not, oh, this is not toxic positive. It is not like silver
No, not at
lining.
all. No.
Yeah. It's just
Everything that
biology.
you just, I feel like everything that you just talked about, I don't mind me interjecting, but like it to me is shadow work. And you're talking about universe in terms of the spirituality that some might gravitate to, but we can call it anything else that shows up for us and how we see it.
Yeah.
But these are definitely really good nuggets that I'm just so grateful that I've been able to realize even before coming on this podcast. The specific thing that you said resonated with me is you said it's not for me to know, it's for me to feel.
Yeah.
And we
I
don't
know.
do enough of it. We don't do enough of it. When we have really difficult things going on, that's why I had to sit back and I think take time and pause and slow down and do less.
Mhm.
Obviously, that was the sign. That was the right. That was the lesson. That was the assignment to do that so that I could be in a place where I can pay attention. I can see the signs. It doesn't mean that I'm not evolving and I'm not still doing whatever it is, or our life purpose, or whatever we feel like we're here to do.
Yeah. And
But
that's
yeah,
why,
it's very hard. It's very hard when you have to go slow and when you have to be uncomfortable with if you're not someone who listens to your feelings,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Listen, why do you think we have war?
Yeah,
Men are the
it's
ones
a
who are
lot of
making these
pain.
choices. Men are totally socialized to not feel their feelings. So
Right.
they
Yeah, it's a
literally have to
very
kill,
biological thing.
and
Yeah.
they're killing others because they're killing themselves. Again, if we think
It's
back of,
pain deep down in themselves,
yeah,
right?
and
And they're
so
projecting
exercise,
it. Hmm.
exactly, exactly. So I think we all need help. I think men in particular, and war is the great example of that. I would love to
Yeah.
do this exercise of unraveling your mind trash with you for just a second. So, in this exercise,
Yeah.
it's really helpful to find a photo of yourself as a young person. So, this is the photo I use. I keep it at my desk. So, for anyone watching and
Oh,
listening, if you
cool.
want to take a moment and pause the podcast and go find that picture. But for you in this moment, you'll just have in your mind's eye just a time in your life when you were young that you were free. That's why I like the picture that I just showed. So some people are just listening, not watching, but in this picture, it's of me on the beach. It was my grandparents' beach place. It's a happy place, and I'm running into the ocean with no fear. Okay. So you'll have that for yourself. And I want you to put that to the side for a second and just think about whatever mind trash that you currently experience that if you were to change it in some way, I don't want to say remove it, but transform it, it would have the greatest impact on the quality of your life and your work. So for me, that example would be my mind trash is you are lazy POS. Okay. So I just think I'm the most lazy, undisciplined person ever. Right. And that's a frequent narrative that I say to myself. And I know that if I could change it, I would have a better life. I would experience life as I desire it. So for you, do you have a sense what might that mind trash be?
Yeah, I'm almost trying to utilize your example with coming up with the picture in your head of when you were a child and how free you were,
Hmm.
because that does bring up potential things that you've self-sabotaged, right? Or you've had negative self-talk. And when it started, like that kind of comes up for me pretty early in life, unfortunately. It comes up in like my middle school, like middle school, high school years. I think it was just this sense of being in competition. I was an athlete. I started in sports very early, like 2, 3 years old, enrolled in gymnastics and really pretty much did that until I was in my 20s. So it's a big part of my identity
Hmm.
to like my identity is to prove my performance, like how well I'm able to do my skills. For a long time, that was what it is. So I would say I'm not good enough, or yeah,
Okay.
I'm not gonna be able to compete with you. Like I'm not as good as you.
Okay. So I'm not as good as you. Okay. So now we're going to think about this little girl who was free, and you're going to ask her, does she remember the first time someone said this to her? or maybe somebody didn't say it, but she received this message. So, like, where slash from whom did she learn that this was, quote, true? So the thought is,
Mm,
we're not good enough. This was received as a definitive truth. It was one of the laws of the universe to, and whatever the, if not the first time somebody said this to you, the most vivid, visceral kind of memory that you have around this. You already gave a couple of
mm.
examples. Do you have a sense? Was there like a person who embodied this? Again, it doesn't always have to be somebody directly saying that thing to you.
Honestly, because I have this background again with trauma therapy and so forth, I've done the work now. If you talked to me maybe 2, 3 years ago, I don't know what I would say. It would be hard to decipher, but to be quite honest, it's potentially even my mother.
Yes. So mine as well.
And
Mine is,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah. Because I would
she
have,
she wasn't, she was very, she still has to deal with her own baggage and potentially it's really generational trauma.
oh
I
my
mean,
God,
that's good.
girlfriend, we with this exact, you are
Yeah.
doing my exercise right now.
Reconnect. Yeah.
Yes. So the
We
part,
connect on this level.
the
Yeah.
part here though is you think about, try to imagine, this is similar to the work that I did with you earlier. You are now your mother, right? Or whoever this person
Mm-hmm.
is that gifted you this mind trash.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know, do we have a sense? Can we just at least imagine where she was taught this mind trash, right? So this is like a game of hot potato here, right? People
Right.
have this set of beliefs that they were not born with, because how could you be? Literally, I feel like I'm running a science experiment slash social experiment with especially not only having babies, but having twins and a boy and a girl. It's fascinating.
It is. That
Can
is.
I be like, can
Mm-hmm.
be like, I have a PhD? Not really, but
People that.
yeah, they're not born with this mentality at all. I am gifting them everything that was gifted to me. Now, fortunately, I'm doing the work, so I'm filtering it. Generations above us didn't have that sort of luxury to do. So, however, we can imagine, at least in your case, for your mother, it's also in my case, my mother who told me I was undisciplined, who gifted her this mind trash, right? So, you take a minute and you don't have to answer me, you just reflect on it. And going back to that question of what was it meant to protect? Okay. This mind trash, we are gifting it because we believe that it is what our offspring needs, or the people around us needs to survive. That's why I say it's a gift, because we have mistakenly believed that it is a gift. Otherwise, we wouldn't keep passing it forward. Again, if everything is meant to protect us. Now, this work is really finding in your body, what does forgiveness feel like? Okay. Seeing if you can
To find it in
direct.
my body.
Yeah. So not just in your mind. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what, like, when I think about forgiveness, no, if you were to feel forgiven, maybe for yourself. So if I'm forgiving you and I say, Shay, I forgive you for this messed up thing you did, you would probably feel in your body, I'll just say, a sense of relief somewhere, right? Maybe it's in your stomach, maybe it's in
Mm-hmm.
your heart. Okay. So you know what forgiveness feels like when you receive it. If you could gift that to the person who gifted you the mind trash. So we're going to exchange a little bit here, right? Okay, mom, I am going to forgive you for gifting me the mind trash. Okay. And you feel it in your body and you direct it towards her exactly wherever it is in your body. It's now in her body. And you're going to continue doing this work through the generations, right? That's why I really lit up when you mentioned ancestors. Try to go down, it's going to be very imaginative here, but the whole lineage of you, your mom, maybe it was her mother, whatever, all through your lineage, how this mind trash was perpetuated. Okay. And then this is shout out to my therapist. So that she specializes in internal family systems work, IFS. She came up with this concept. I think she came up with this concept. I'm not sure, but she taught it to me. It's called the well ancestor. It's trying to now imagine there's somebody in your lineage who actually was well, who didn't have this mind trash. Because again, we're all born not having it, but something happens. Usually it's a person who teaches it to us. In my experience, when I imagined my well ancestor going down the lineage, I had this feeling of a person in Poland, because that's where half my family's from. They're like lying out in the fields and no anti Semitism had happened, right? Because my family came to America to escape pogroms and learned that if you work really hard, you can become successful. And that's why if you're not working in my family and you're not successful, you are not worthy. That is where the you are a piece of lazy shit, right? But there was probably somebody in my family, I'd like to imagine, where there was no pogroms, no anti-Semitism, and they lived in the field, they lived on the farm, and they were in the fields, and they were in the moment, and they were resting. And they were resting without the narrative of you are a lazy piece of shit. Do I know this for sure? No, but I was able to imagine it when I did this work. And then you remind yourself, you are of them. You are connected to them. You inadvertently got your mind trash from them, but if you can try to feel them in your body as well, right? So you are gifting this forgiveness through the lineages, and then you get to the person who doesn't need the gift anymore. So you actually have to now receive from them the
Right.
wisdom that they had. And so at this part of the exercise, hopefully you were feeling lighter. Great. Now we're going to do a little bit of work. You're going to take the picture, which I'm sorry I didn't tell you to do this beforehand, but you'll do this later. You're going to look at the picture of yourself now, or not now, the young girl version of you.
Mhm.
And hopefully you were feeling in a very parenting way, like you have now become your ancestor. And what I like about this next step is that you have instant perspective. That's the whole goal with being able to dialogue with your mind trash, is saying to yourself, I am not my thoughts. My thoughts are a part of me, or they represent a part of me. And that kind of instant perspective allows you to self coach. So it's not that you're going to eradicate the mind trash moving forward. You're going to be able to spot it. Okay. And that everything else will flow from there. So you look at this picture of this girl and you go, okay, I'm going to reflect on all the ways that this girl internalized the mind trash. So we know that she believes that she's not good enough, but how did that direct her actions? And all through the ages. And so even I call it decades work, starting from 0 to 9, then 10 to 19, 20 onwards, and however old you are now, because trying to go through your whole life is really intense. So just look at 0 to 9. How did this girl internalize this mind trash? Meaning, how did I am not good enough direct her actions? And write down as many examples as you can in each of your decades. Okay. And what this ended up doing, by the way, it became this like self-fulfilling prophecy. So now you're acting in a way that you believe is true. Like you are developing a sense of self that is based off of a made up thing, this belief that was
Right.
gifted to you that is highly culturally specific, that through the generations, because of oftentimes things like war or hardship, you now have. And you've now operated your actions based off of that. So you think this is who you are. No, no, it's not. Okay. And then I want you to go back through all of these experiences that you had in which you took actions based off of the direction of you are not good enough. And this is a little bit of a tricky question, but try to remember who you were then when you got triggered. Like
Yeah.
for me, when does the you're lazy pop up, right? And there's times in which it typically pops up. Okay. You go back to that moment of being triggered and you say, what is a kinder, more generous interpretation of what was going on for me at that time in my life, in that moment? Because that trash that popped up, you were not good enough, that then directed your actions. It was programmed into you, but we want to reprogram. And the reprogramming is intentional now. It's you deciding how you want to speak to yourself. So if we could, you can't just do that moving forward. I think it's too hard moving forward. If we are literally making decisions based off of what we've understood from the past, we have to, again, rewrite the past. And so when you go back and you say, okay, when I was triggered to take this kind of action based off of this belief system, what did I need at the time? What's a kinder, more generous interpretation of what was going on for me then? How would I have cared for myself then? What would I have told myself then, if not that mind trash? Because that is what you're going to be doing moving forward, right? We have to replace the mind trash with something else. I just don't think it's going to be that easy to do if we can't first rewrite the past with if I were me at then, here's what I would have said to myself. And really going
Mhm.
through the decades, because you already have all the examples written out for yourself of these times that you were triggered and took that action, to replay them like a scene in a movie, but the voice that you are narrating for that scene is Shea's voice with this compassionate lens. Let me know if that made sense. I'm still working through all of it to better articulate it myself. So tell me if you have any questions or if it's resonating.
I think like the activity in general definitely does. I get where you're going from with saying to yourself, I I am not my thoughts, and having that be the focus. And then as you go through the negative thoughts or the conditioning or the mind trash or like whatever comes up, the triggers, it's really conditioning for me. That's how I call it. And then breaking that down, you're at least having from what I understand, like you have the focus that you want to redirect it. I think that's
Yeah.
what you're trying to say is what the focus is of this. So even though, like for me, if I said to answer that question, can you remember who you were
Mm-hmm.
when you were triggered
Mm-hmm.
or at that time, I would say I didn't have a lot of friends or really trusting friends. I had a lot of low self-esteem. I only had certain places and environments where I felt fully myself and like very strong.
Mm-hmm.
And so I also didn't know at the time because now I've been diagnosed with ADHD as an adult. I did not know that I actually was different.
Yeah.
And I did not have anyone to give me a example or be a mentor to mirror or
Mm-hmm.
show that being different or unique is okay. I did not have anyone saying that. So I grew up thinking like, oh, why don't I have these same traits and strengths as my peers? Why am I not as far along as my peers are in relationships or in career? Like, why am I feeling behind or feeling left to the wolves, if you will? So that was again just going through the exercise. That's more of the trigger when I think about what I originally told you. I'm not good enough.
And so what did you need at the time?
I think what I needed at the time was really someone I love and benefit from interpersonal relationships. So
Mhm.
I needed someone to sit down with me one on one and deeply connect emotionally with me and just give me the validation and the reassurance that I am enough, I'm unique, I can be celebrated, I'm valued, and that also just the reassurance that everything would be okay.
Yeah. So
Because a lot of that started uncertainty. It started the anxiety wheel.
yes, of course. And so now the question is, how do you give that to yourself? And you said you referenced another person, right? You said, I want someone else to emotionally connect with me to reassure me that my
Yes.
uniqueness is okay. So we're going to take the other people out of the equation. Because again, until we can connect,
Right.
with them, when you have something of it to give to them, we can't be looking for them to give to
Right.
us because we'll perpetually be looking and be empty. How do you
And you're just
connect?
gonna, yeah.
Yeah. So then we change it to, okay, how do I connect emotionally with myself? How can I reassure myself that my uniqueness is a good thing or recognize myself? And one way when you're looking at this going, if I knew how to emotionally connect with myself, I would have done that already. Or how to
Yeah.
recognize my uniqueness, I would have done that already. So for any of
Mm.
you all who are thinking that, great question. I would then say to myself, what does it feel like in my body to emotionally connect with myself? Or what does it feel like in my body to be recognized? Like you're craving something that you
Mm.
probably have experienced once. That's how you even know that it's something you even want. And then say, how do I
Yeah.
create an environment or an exercise for myself that gets me to practice that? So we're not trying to solve anything because it's really huge, but we want to get more familiar with the feeling of emotional connection or of reassuring of uniqueness. So again, it's pretty abstract right now, but based off of the prompt, what does it feel like in your body to be recognized? Do you have a sense of what that might be?
Yeah. In my body, I think it would be that I would feel a sense of like warmth and I would feel like I honestly, I'm trying to explain, but it's just like almost like a vibration. Like when you have, if we just look at the very other opposite time of, right, not feeling recognized, it
Mhm.
would be potentially when you were in a room where everyone was looking at you and you had this amazing outfit on and you felt so confident in your skin and you really loved what you were doing, you felt just very purposeful, like you had purpose, right? Like you meant something to others. So I do go back and think about that, and that might help also as the visualization. But as far as the feeling, I think it's the warmth in my body, and I think it's almost like I'm honestly I'm vibrating. I'm like, I guess when Buddhists can levitate, right? Like they
Yeah.
just saying they are really surrounding themselves with this light. And
Yeah.
that's what I visually think of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're totally correct because I think you're tapping into collective energy. So all of our energies, that's why at the end of all this, it's
Mm,
how do we form connections with others? So when you're feeling a
yeah.
vibration
Yeah.
in your life, I think it's actually because you are tapping into a collective energy, right? That's more powerful than you. So it's again a
Hmm.
little bit contradictory
I
here.
agree.
How do you give it to yourself? So we
Right.
can't rely on others. However, we do need them. So
We
it's just
do.
it's just the chronology of it. You mentioned being in a room or having others look at you and all that. Okay. So like we're going to take those people out of the equation here. That warmth in your body, and this is definitely ongoing work, so we can skip over it for the moment, but just as a good prompt for everybody here, when you're able to locate how that ideal feeling expresses itself in your body, try to imagine a way in which you can provide that for yourself. So what is
Yeah.
an environment that you could put yourself in or again, something that just doesn't require other people. And it's again, not
Yep.
that we are trying to solve anything or feel it for a sustained period of time. The key though is that you feel it consistently. So it could be for 2 seconds, but you
Okay.
have to do it every day. This is where I would really recommend creating, I've talked about this in another podcast, by the way, of an altar to yourself, of the little girl picture, and you're just taking 5 minutes a day, whatever it is, like we've allocated, you have the 3 hours to work every day. A portion of it will be dedicated to building the foundation of your house, of your life. Okay, we're going to take now 5 minutes and we have a specific exercise, which is it's not about the mantras. Okay. It's about the feeling, the somatic experience that you are looking for of recognition, warmth in my body. You're going to get very clear, like where it is. And you're going to create a meditation for yourself or something that just taps you back into that feeling. And you're going to try every day to do it. You probably won't feel it every day, but the fact that you are carving out practice, what all of that is doing is it is signaling to your inner core, it's okay to come out. Remember, I said it's going to be quiet. That inner wisdom will only reveal itself to you if it feels like you are going to listen and honor her, it, they, whatever. So, universe is loud, right? Pay attention to the inside. Now we got to get really quiet. How do we say come out? For you specifically, it's the desire for recognition, and you've now associated that with a warmth in your body. So you have a great action plan for a personal ritual that you can do consistently. That is a building block to this house, to this foundation that you have. I know we've super gone over. I have a couple more exercises to do with you. Do you still have time to do them?
I definitely do. If it's, I would say like in the next 30 minutes, if that's something we can
Perfect.
tailor.
Yeah,
Did you want to get an idea of, because I like just like to brainstorm, but did you want to get an idea of what I'm thinking about doing or potentially incorporating into how I can care for myself with respect to like recognition,
I think for
validation?
the purposes of this podcast, I'm going to keep moving, but I'll talk to you about this after for sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, because I want to keep
Sounds good.
developing stuff.
Right.
Okay. So let's do this exercise. It's a pretty quick one. So it's transforming the mind trash into action. Okay. So let's think of the biggest mind trash you have right now. So my example was, I'm a lazy piece
Mm,
of shit. And do we still want to use, we can absolutely use the one that you have of, I'm not good enough.
yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
So now we're going to ask ourselves, why does that matter? And the way that we respond it is, this is important to me because, so it's important to me to be good enough because, let's just say, or for me, it was like, I'm a lazy piece of shit. Okay. So it's important to me to not be lazy because, so do you see how I'm reframing it?
Yes, I
All right.
do.
Cool. Do you have a response for me?
Off the top of my head, it's going to be tough, but I think it's been something that you've been saying and it's been going on throughout this conversation is you're noticing that I am tapping into the collective, that I do recognize and see that my life purpose and me on this earth is it's not just about me, right? It's about it's bigger than me. And I'm very much aware of that. And that's become a lot of my value.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say it's because I probably put potentially too much pressure on myself to really be making sure that I have these sort of tangible outcomes that explain my purpose, that people can, that I love and respect and care for, and even those that I don't know, that I want to inspire and empower, because that's part of my purpose,
Mm-hmm.
are going to be able, the question is, are they going to be able to see my purpose, or did I do enough to really show and create opportunities, experiences for myself that show my purpose? So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I mean by not being good enough.
Okay. So it's important to me to show my purpose or live my purpose,
Yes.
right? Okay, great.
Live my purpose. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
perfect.
then next question is, why does that matter? Like, why is that important? Because again,
Oh
that's
gosh. Yeah.
culturally specific, right? Not everybody has that response. So you would say,
I,
you know,
yeah, I think it's going to go back to a lot of the stuff. Again, that's why I resonate with what you're saying so far, and particularly talking about generational trauma and talking about ancestors. I have been brought up in a very culturally, I would say, focused
mhm,
family. And I think that there is this sense of trying to prove to my grandmother or my ancestors, the wiser mentors of the few that I had, and a lot of them have passed, but like to try and do better and
mhm,
to try to break those basically generational, um, like that generational trauma, like break
mhm.
that. I want to be the difference. I want to be the
Okay.
difference in my family. And I want to be the difference for others like me. On a professional level, my story is I'm a low income first generation college student. That's what I say to folks when I'm
Mhm,
describing, yeah, how I can interact and collaborate with colleagues. So that's important to me to identify that way, because I want others to see me that way
mhm.
and see that my strengths come through resilience and hopefully getting through, again, like breaking the barriers, getting through these things that I've experienced and getting to the root of them, which I
Mhm.
think is a lot about the generational trauma.
Okay. So we started with, it is important to me to live my purpose. Okay. So why is that important? It's important to me to live my purpose because it's breaking generational curses or wounds, because I'm
Yeah.
presuming like people in your family weren't able to live their purpose. Am I correct?
Okay.
So
Correct. Yeah.
it's okay. So it's important to me to break generational wounds.
Because others in my family didn't get the same opportunities or the same chances to basically be their best selves, to live to their highest power, you know.
Okay. So at this point, by the way, it usually takes about 2 to 3. Why does this matter? And this is the downward arrow technique from cognitive behavioral therapy. Shout out to that. Now you're going to say, what I really want is, okay. So
Mm.
it's not that you really want to live your purpose, because living your purpose represents something else to you.
So you're
And
trying
that's
to say, like, how do I uncover this
the
other thing?
core, it's the root. Again, the downward arrow technique is finding what is like the core belief here, the core
Hmm.
desire that gets layers of how we wrap it up, right? Like it's all wrapped up in a box, a culturally specific box, but there's like an underlying sort of human desire here. Okay, so I want to break generational curses. Okay, but why? Why does it matter? Like you give a shit about that, but some people they don't. They're like, I just want to make money.
Hmm.
And actually, maybe at the end of the
Yeah.
day, it does come down to the very same thing, but
Yeah, exactly.
there's something else here. So what I really want is okay to break generational curses. Why does it matter to you to break a generational curse?
I think it's because I have seen my family mentors, again, these I talked to you about my grandma being like my living hero. I think that I had seen just such a beautiful soul in who she was, and it's because of her resilience, it's because of those bad experiences that actually showed me that she is strong and that she can get through it. And so I do think that's helping me, but it's also a sad feeling
Mhm.
that she wasn't, in my opinion, lifted up. So people didn't see, to me, I felt like I was observing others around her, other family members, not seeing her true worth, not seeing her true light and the wisdom and the things that she could offer others. And I felt like I was very privileged and very grateful to be able to feel that and to see that and to learn from her.
It
So I
really
took it
comes back
in.
to worth again, comes back to worth, and it comes back to
Yeah.
recognition. You felt
Yep.
like she wasn't being recognized. And then you have
Right.
that theme of not being recognized. Again, it's
Right.
striking you because it is what you were searching for in yourself. So I think what
Yeah.
you really want is what we've already determined, but I'm just going to confirm it again here, which is I want to recognize my worth or embrace my worth, right? Let's just say
Yep.
that's what we're going with.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is where the action part comes in. We're going to brainstorm ways in which you can cultivate and integrate self recognition and worth more into your life. And we'll skip over what does worth feel like in your body. Like we know that. Okay. But like all the ways in which you have felt worthiness in your life. Of course, they all we're going to probably involve other people, but then we're going to say, how do we give them to ourselves? Or how do we create an environment in which it becomes more easeful for us to experience this? And if you want to think of a way to respond to me, that's fine. But here's the kicker. And this is, I think, what makes my coaching a little bit different from other people's is that's an aspirational list. We don't live in an aspirational world. We live in a harsh reality.
Right.
Okay. So then we
Yeah.
can brainstorm what are all the things that are going to get in your way from actually doing this work? Because let's say I feel like I recognize myself when I am writing. Let's just say that. I'm
Hmm.
going to use my own example. Like when I get into the
Hmm.
flow of writing, which is not all the time, but I'm writing. Okay. And then I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to write more. Yeah. Okay. What's the reality that I'm actually going to write more? I like trying to
Yeah.
make a business and two kids. Okay. So then we go, all right, what are all the things in my way of writing more? Some of it's the logistical stuff, some of it's energy, some of it's mind trash. Okay. And then I'm going to
Hmm.
make an action plan around each of those things. Ah, okay. Logistically, can we move around anything here? And this is where you totally hit the nail on the head. You said doing less. That's a big lesson I learned.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for
Knowing that
sure.
in order for me, and I'm bringing it to myself here, but in order for me to feel my best self, I have to be writing consistently. That's when I feel
Okay.
one of the things I have to do in order to feel most alive. But ironically, I am putting it to the back burner all the time. So now when I have a huge list of things to do, I'm really going through it and saying writing's a priority every day. Writing a little bit's a priority. So I'm actually going to say no to this other thing that I really want to do. That's the problem. We actually have to say no to all the things we want to do. Have to actually do the things you need to do to have that foundation of the house. So this is why,
Yeah.
before we get
Yes.
into all the applying for the jobs and the articulating of the stories and all, it's are you giving to yourself what your core essence needs to be
Right.
well? And so when
Right.
you think to yourself, I really want in my life recognition of self. And so I can embrace my worth. And so when I embrace my worth, I can live my purpose. And when I live my purpose, I'm breaking generational curses. See, that's how we got there. So
Right.
instead of going from the living my purpose, which is such a huge thing, can be expressed in so many ways. How do you even know what your purpose is? You don't, because every day you're getting a little bit wiser. So you in this moment cannot figure this out. And it is futile to try, in my opinion. What would be a
Yeah.
better service of self and others actually is to say, what are consistent practices I can do that fulfill my core need? And so for you, that core need is
Okay.
recognition of self to embrace your worth. Okay. So you're going to be thinking about
Hmm.
how to do that. And we're going to get real creative with it. This is when I recommend everyone should hire a coach, hire me, because to figure this stuff out on your own is really impossible. And then you got to stick to it. But the way you stick to it is not willpower and discipline, because that is extra energy that we just don't have. It's again saying, how can I make this
Hmm.
as small as possible and have it fit into the way I'm already living my life? So for me, a lot of times my writing, it's when I take the kids on a walk in the stroller and I'm speaking into my voice memo. And then at night when I'm falling
Hmm.
asleep, I'm just editing it. So a lot of the plan actually comes around the roadblocks, the resistance. And then the last part about this is would helping others experience this bring me joy and or fulfillment? And so for you, the answer I know is already yes, right? Like your recognition of self and embracing your worth, like you already want to help other people overcome things that
Yeah.
you've overcome too. But I think for anyone else listening out there who's not looking to be a coach or any of this stuff, it just think of it in a small way. So my quick example going back way earlier when I said one of my lessons for my son's health experience was how can I reduce the narrative voice and get more into my feelings? And in that, I experienced more love from people. Now I'd say, how can I help other people do that? Not the whole, how do I help them get through a medical crisis? Because I'd like to do that, but that's really big. So to break it down in its smallest component, it is how can I help people have a deeper connection? And honestly, you know what it made me do? There was this person I recently met who I feel like I'm going to be friends with. It's like weird to say that as an adult, but I'm like, oh, I want her to be my friend. I messaged her and
Yeah.
I said, hey, I'd love to hang out. See, so
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm talking about. Just anything that feels so massive. What is the smallest common denominator that you can do to maintain a line back to this core need that you realize is part of the foundation of self? So for me, it's connection to others, right? Love, warmth with others, right? Which we all need as human beings. And it's no surprise that both you and myself and many others experienced massive depression during the pandemic. But it will not rectify without consistency. And the consistency can only happen if it's small. I have a couple more things I wanted to go over, but tell me in this moment, thoughts, feelings, anything you want to share.
Well, yeah, I was just trying to take down like no terms of like the different questions and how I would work this out as an activity. So
Mhm,
you started with what are all the ways you have felt worthiness? And that's
mhm,
certainly like a great place to start. It's very positive, and I did write some notes. You also said, what are all the things that are going, what are, I worded it myself, but what are all the things that are going to get
mhm,
in the way of your
mhm.
worthiness or of
Of
this
following
worth or
through,
maintaining? Right. So
doing this work.
follow through. I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So not what's going to get in the way of the
That's,
worthiness, but if you
mm,
think about an exercise, so example, like right for me, so I said, okay, writing helps me feel connected to myself. What are all the reasons I'm not going to actually sit down and write this week?
do
That's
that.
and
So for me, it was like mentoring others.
Mhm,
I also actually said, and that would be twofold for me because it would give me the chance to help people, guide people to see their strengths and passion, but also gives you the social interactions, like to
mm,
be around like-minded people. So that's like twofold for me. And then I also talked about literally, it's not like a passion, but it's pretty close to it. Like I need to have physical exercise. I've
mm,
always been an athlete, so I have to do something physical, even if it becomes recreational, right? Like kayaking or,
mhm.
hiking, whatever.
Yeah.
But how can I create community around my physical exercise? Can I lead a hike or something? This is the thing, like being around people, like-minded people that
Yes.
enjoy physical exercise. So it's just
I
like my
mean,
brainstorm real
here,
quick.
this is amazing. Okay. And then challenge yourself. How do I break it down into something even smaller? Because you just said something that is amazing and totally I have some ideas for, but it's really big, which
Mm-hmm.
is can I lead something, right? You said something about maybe leading the hike, and I'm thinking, oh my God, if
Yeah.
you can have a whole business where actually there is a person I know who does have a business called, can't remember her name, but it's she does do hiking that's also like coaching and hiking. There's
Oh,
something
so
there.
cool. That's
Yeah,
super cool.
I should
That's
connect
so my
you.
vibe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'll connect.
Yeah.
I think she's in Philadelphia, but I'll connect you.
Oh my
I
gosh.
think it's
Thank you.
called. I think it's called Hike and Heal. Hike and
Oh
Heal.
my gosh.
Hike and
Wow.
Heal.
I'd love to go to one of her things if I lived there.
So that's the thing. So you're like, can I lead something? And I'm like, she may ultimately do that, but that's too big and scary and also requires a lot of self-confidence and worthiness. And we're on the path to getting there. So it would be, okay,
Yeah.
can I go for a walk? Okay, what group are there
Right.
groups out there already? So it's, and I'm not calling you,
Right.
I'm just saying everybody.
No, I've actually thought about that. So that's like when you say follow through, okay, what's more tangible, Shay? Why am I going to do it? What's going to motivate me? Like I have to think about that with almost everything I do because then the executive functioning comes in for me and it is about avoiding burnout, right? So yeah, I'm just trying to make things like tangible and make sense, be realistic. So I guess, yeah, we can't probably won't go into all of it, but just the follow through also might be, I just want to say this in general, because I think it's been proven and I hope it will stay that way. I have folks, friends, or coworkers or so forth, they do what's called accountability check-ins for me.
Mhm, mhm, mhm,
And to me, if I'm thinking about whatever that is, it doesn't have to be the job search. It could just literally be, did
mhm,
you go outside today? Did
mhm,
you get any vitamin D? Did you look at the sun?
mhm,
That could be just the check-in for me. And I get it. It's requiring other people, but other ways that I do it myself is giving myself alarms that have like specific labels on them so you know
mhm.
what they're for.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I
like
put
that's
this stuff
something
in my
like that.
calendar for sure. Yeah. If you create tasks in your calendar It makes them
Yeah.
real, and then you protect your time. Yeah, and brainstorming through what are all the reasons that I am not going to do this work and coming up with a plan for each thing. And by the way, each thing, it might not be a one size fits all, or it might work for
Yeah.
a while. Like I used a thing called focusmate.com, which is body doubling, right? So when I'm doing it,
Oh,
it
someone
connects
told me
me.
about that. I haven't
Yeah,
used it yet
which is
though.
awesome. And I
Focus
used
me.
it and it
Okay.
super helped me. And then I stopped using it, but I also
Okay.
didn't need it anymore. So whatever's working for you, keep using it. But if it's starting to not work for you, that's okay. That's because you've evolved and maybe you need to try
Yeah.
something else as well. And that something else does not include self-flagellation. Okay. If it's all right, I'd like to go for a hike. Okay. One reason, or I want to join a group. I can envision myself coming up with the excuse of, oh, I don't have time, but at the core of it, I know I'm really nervous, and maybe it's because I'm out of the practice of hanging out with people in real life. So maybe what I actually need to do is to schedule a coffee with somebody that I'm already friends with. And now I'm in the habit of seeing myself out in public with another person. Okay, now maybe
Mm,
I do the hike. Again, it's just really breaking down just what's the most easeful way to follow through, not just
right.
what will guarantee the follow through.
Yeah.
I want to just talk to you at the very end here about cultivating a deeper connection to self, right? This like quiet part of us that contains an inner wisdom that has been untouched from all of the mind trash, but it is buried. Okay. So you're going to be implementing these other things of practices that help get you to start listening to yourself. A couple
Hmm.
of things I want to say. Anytime that you are going through something that doesn't feel good, particularly if you are not feeling good to yourself. So you are saying something to yourself. Just try to get into the habit of reciting, a part of me feels this way. So if you say something like, oh, I'm so unmotivated. No,
Mm,
part of me is unmotivated. I'm really bad at focusing. A part of me is bad at focusing. You and everybody does. We all make these generalized identity statements that
yeah.
we take as truth, but hopefully through all these exercises in our discussion today, I've shown you that they are just whole systems of beliefs that we've inherited from others.
Yeah.
And if you try to shift in a whole identity, it's an existential crisis. It becomes a lot easier to deal with if you have perspective. And a way to have perspective is to look at it as a part of you, which is actually the truth here. Because if we believe that there is a core essence, an inner wisdom, and not everybody does, if you subscribe to like internal family systems work, for example, and I think Buddhism, right, there's like a spirit. And that does mean there are other parts of ourselves, a part of us that feels scared, a part of us that feels excited, right? If you're about to go on stage and give a speech or do a job interview, you're probably
Hmm.
feeling nervous and excited and a whole bunch of other things, right? And remember in the beginning, I said the ability to acknowledge multiple things happening at once expands your capacity to carry life. So in the
Hmm.
moment, a part of me feels this way. Great. Next thing I would love to do, and this kind of goes back to the work of what do you need to give to yourself in order to fulfill that core desire? I'm sure you're aware of the 8 C's. There's like the 8 C's and I think the 5 P's. So this is compassion, creativity, curiosity, confidence, courage, calm, connectedness, clarity. And then we've got the 5 P's: presence, persistence, perspective, playfulness, patience. You Google qualities of
What were
self.
they again? If you don't mind me saying, so there are
Yeah.
three C's or
So there's
five?
5 P's. So P is in
Hmm.
penguin. And then there's 8 C's. Okay. So
Wow.
I'll just, the qualities of self. And so self is that core essence, right? The inner wisdom, the thing underneath, buried underneath all the mind trash. Compassion, creativity, curiosity, confidence, courage, calm, connectedness, clarity. And then we've got the 5 P's: presence, persistence, perspective, playfulness, patience. If you have any of these feelings, that means you are connected with self, meaning you are operating outside of the mind trash and in more alignment, okay, with who you
Hmm.
actually are, for like who you were
Hmm.
at birth, kind of thing. Now, take these words, and for anybody watching and listening, like just Google qualities of self, right? The 8 C's and the 5 P's. Try to challenge yourself to come up with consistent daily practices that allow you to live these words. So, what does compassion look and feel like? Creativity, curiosity, confidence. However, you define that, it's going to look different from how maybe I define it. This is the
Hmm.
blueprint of getting more connected with yourself. So if many therapists have said these are the things we want to be cultivating in our lives to build that foundation of the house. So instead of it just being, yeah, that sounds good. No, how do you act upon it? How do you live this? We can think of that in a very
Mhm.
big sense, right? Like creating a whole career out of this kind of stuff, way too big. So every day, what does patience look and feel like to you? What is a way that you can tap into it? And if that's hard to think of, it would be the opposite, right? What does impatience look and feel like, right? And then you say, okay, so the
Mhm.
inverse. We've already done a version of this exercise already together, but I wanted to add those words to it because it's going to help give you direction. And this, quite frankly,
Love
is
it.
the MBA of life here, right? Is your homework and knowing that it is never over, that the assignment, to use your words, that you were given from a very young age because of the generational crap, right?
Mhm.
You will never figure this out. And you have to also accept that. You will never
Yeah.
be okay. And you will also be wonderful. Like,
You can
you
do
will,
that. Yeah, you can be
yeah.
both.
Yeah. And just knowing that everything that you are seeking to do for others, you are seeking to do for yourself. I will get a bit meta for a second. I had to reschedule with you. And then I was like, I think I need to cancel because I'm really overwhelmed with all the health stuff that my son's going through and
Yes,
all
right.
this. You and another woman, I had said, I can't do the call.
Mhm.
But then I ultimately said, let's do it. And I have personally found I've learned a lot about myself in the experience of coaching you and this other woman. But I also find it really interesting because if I had coached you at the time that we had originally scheduled, it would have been a very
Mhm.
different session.
I agree. I completely agree with you about me. Yes.
Yeah, we would have like
It would have
probably.
been chaotic for me. I would not have been focused
Mhm.
at all. Yeah.
And I hadn't gone through everything that I went through with my son. Like at the time I was still in the depths of it, I didn't have any perspective on it. And now the perspective I've gotten
Mm.
from his health stuff has helped inform the coaching that I'm doing. I wouldn't have had the ability to guide you in
Mm.
this way at all. So that's also where all these things are maybe happening for a reason, right? Like not getting
Mm.
the job, a certain person being in your life. None of it is bad or good. There's
Yeah.
layers, ancestral layers to all of this or whatever. So when you start to look at everything as the gift, again, it's awful and it
Yeah.
hurts and all the things, but like you can use everything, including a rescheduling. Like
Yeah.
rescheduling is a benefit. And we just lived that right now in our experience here. Thank you so much for doing this with me, being experimental as I pull together all the things I've learned and the various modalities I've experienced, and including my own life. But is there anything you want to share before I let you go and I'm going to take a nap and, and be a
Well,
lazy
good
piece
for
of
you.
shit?
Or just care for your needs or
Exactly.
essential needs.
Yes.
No, I'm sorry I wasn't able to say earlier that I'm very thankful and grateful for the opportunity. I do agree with you about I think there's I believe in timing and there's a time and place for everything. I was patient with the process to get rescheduled and I did believe in this opportunity too. So hopefully I put some good energy into it. And that's why we're connecting, we're meeting. But yeah, I'm very grateful for it. You brought up so many different nuggets, like so many specific things that I connect with, but then also things I never really thought about that I want to tap into. I'm such a student at heart, so I
Yeah.
really love this model and this format to be able to do activities, to
Mhm.
live in it, and to
Yeah.
go through the process. So thank you again so much.
You're the best. Thank you.